All right, let's take a little trip back in time. We're heading to the late 90s, a really crucial moment when the web was just starting to figure out how to be, well, dynamic. And we're going to talk about a piece of tech that absolutely changed the game, JavaServer Pages, or as you'll probably know it, JSP.
Just stop and think about it for a second. Every single website you use today, it probably knows your name, it shows you a personalized feed, stuff updates in real time. That's just normal for us. But it wasn't always like that, not even close. So the big question is, how did we get from these boring, static pages to the super interactive web we live in now? What was that first big leap?
So let's get right into it. The dynamic web problem. Look, to really get why JSP was such a big deal, you have to understand the mess it was created to clean up. For developers back in the late 90s, making a website dynamic it was a real headache. Super complicated, and honestly, it stifled a lot of creativity.
Okay, check this out. On the left, you see the old way, using something called Java servlets. Look at it. The programmer is literally writing Java code to print out every single line of HTML. It's just awful. It's clunky, it's impossible to read, and for a web designer, an absolute nightmare. But then, look at the right. This is the new idea, the JSP way. See the switch? Instead of putting HTML inside Java, you put a tiny bit of Java inside HTML. It seems so simple, but this was a total game changer, a completely brilliant flip in how people thought about building websites.
And that brilliant little flip led us right here. A page, that's a program. This was the core concept behind JSP. The idea that a web page, a simple HTML file, could secretly be a powerful program. And believe me, this wasn't just a minor upgrade. It was a completely new way to think about building for the web.
So what is JavaServer Pages officially? Well, it's a technology that came out of Sun Microsystems, and it did one simple, powerful thing. It let developers stick bits of Java code and special commands right inside a regular HTML document. That's it. And that one single change made building dynamic websites so much simpler and, you guessed it, way faster.
Yeah, the absolute best way to wrap your head around this is to think of it like a smart template. You've got your web designer, right? They make this beautiful HTML page. That's the template. Then the programmer comes in and sprinkles in these little JSP tags. They're like little instructions, placeholders for the dynamic stuff. So when you go to visit that page, the server spots those tags, runs the Java code hiding inside them, and bam! It fills in all the blanks with your username, the latest stock prices, whatever, before it sends the final page to you.
And this smarts template idea created what was, without a doubt, the single biggest advantage of JSP. It created a clean separation between how the page looks and how the page works. For the very first time, you could have a web designer working on the HTML, making everything look perfect, and they didn't have to know a single thing about the complex Java code humming away in the background. Meanwhile, the Java developers could focus on all the heavy lifting, the logic, the databases, without ever worrying they were going to accidentally break the website's design. This was massive for teamwork, just massive.
Okay, so this all sounds great, but how does it actually work? What's the magic behind the curtain? How does this simple text file with a few weird-looking tags turn into a real dynamic web page? Let's break it down.
It's basically a four-step dance that happens behind the scenes. Step 1. Your browser requests a page that ends in .jsp. Step 2. The server sees that, and its special JSP compiler translates the whole file into a Java servlet. Yep, it turns it right back into that messy code we saw earlier. Step 3. A regular Java compiler then takes that servlet code and compiles it into executable bytecode. And finally, Step 4. The server runs that program, which spits out a final, pure HTML page and sends that back to your browser. So really, JSP was kind of like this user-friendly disguise for the much more complicated servlet technology working underneath.
Now, to make all this magic happen, developers had a whole toolkit of special tags they could use. Let's take a quick look at the three main ones you'd see.
First up, you've got directives. The easiest way to think about these is like stage directions for the server. They aren't actually part of the show the audience or the user sees. Instead, they're instructions for the JSP compiler, telling it how to set the stage. Things like, hey, import these code libraries, or make sure the final page is treated as an HTML file.
Next up, we have the scripting elements. Now, these are the real heart of JSP. People often call them scriptlets. This is where you could just drop raw Java code right into the page. Anything you wanted to do, loop through a list of products, connect to a database to grab a username, do some complex calculation, you did it right here, inside these tags.
And finally, we have actions. Think of these as handy, pre-built shortcuts. They look kind of like XML tags, and they let you do common tasks without having to write a bunch of custom Java code every single time. So if you needed to do something like forward a request or grab data from a reusable component called a Java bean, you'd just use one of these action tags. Super helpful for keeping the code clean.
So, it's pretty clear that JSP was absolutely revolutionary for its time, no question. But what about now? How does it stack up in today's world, a world completely dominated by modern frameworks like React and Angular and Vue? Where does it fit in?
Well, JSP really had its moment in the sun, its heyday, from about 1999 through the mid-2000s. In that window, it got better, it got more powerful, and it became the absolute backbone for tons and tons of websites. But as we all know too well, technology does not stand still.
And yeah, the modern verdict on JSP is pretty clear-cut. This quote from one of our sources really hits the nail on the head. Due to outdated techniques, JSP is rejected by many. I mean, you'll still find it running on older legacy systems out there for sure, but would you start a brand new project with JSP today? Almost nobody would.
So that leads us to the big final question, right? If it's so outdated, why are we even talking about it? Why did you just spend all this time learning about a technology that's basically a relic? Does it even matter anymore?
Because here's the key takeaway, the most important thing to remember. Understanding JSP is like understanding a crucial chapter in the history of the web. That core idea it introduced, separating what a page looks like from what it does, that principle is alive and well in every single modern framework we use today. JSP was that vital bridge. It's what carried us over from the world of static, boring pages to the incredible, dynamic, app-driven web that we literally can't imagine our lives without now.